Hello guys, what's going on? This is Amit Korai again, back with a new tutorial on performance testing. In my first tutorial, you guys have learned only about the key concepts in terms of performance testing. Please find my first video on performance testing key concepts in the description given below. But in today's video, you are going to learn about a lot on one new performance testing tool, which is LoadRunner. So let's not waste our time and let's get started because we have a lot to learn. Okay, LoadRunner has three major components. One, Vugen, second, controller, and the third one is analysis. Apart from these three, we have two other components, which are number one, LoadRunner agent service, which is going to run as agent from.exe, and the second one is the load generator. Now, I'm going to explain you guys each and every component in a detailed way. Before we will proceed to the explanation part, let's make one thing very clear, is that in my first tutorial, I have taught you guys about the different kind of performance testing phases. So there are several phases of the performance testing. Like first one is planning, second one is design, third one is environment setup, fourth one is test script design or test script development, fifth one is execution, sixth one is reporting, and the last one is sign off. So apart from the planning, designing, and environment setup phase, the main activity of performance testing is scripting or test script development. So you can directly map those phases of performance testing to LoadRunner major components. So let's first talk about Vugen. Vugen or virtual user generator. So here Vugen is required for test script development purpose. Now LoadRunner has lots of protocols for script development purpose. It has web HTTP HTML, it has Flex, it has Ajax to client, IMAP, it has POP3, it has .NET, Java Work HTTP, lots of protocols LoadRunner can support. Now, what protocol we are going to use, that is totally dependent upon the application technology or which protocol is used for the communication purpose between the client and server. In most of the web-based application, the main protocol for communication from a client to server is HTTP or HTTPS. There might be some other protocol like FTP or other protocols, but main is like HTTP or HTTPS protocol. So mainly our focus would be on web HTTP and HTML protocol, as most of the internet-based applications perform the communication on HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Now there might be some exception of there are other applications also which are not going to be recorded using web HTTP HTML protocol. Like in the application there is any applet, or if the application has any flash video, then definitely those things are not going to be recorded using normal web HTTP HTML protocol. Then we have to go for some other protocols that I will discuss later. Now again, like for Gmail application, normal you will not be able to develop the script using normal web HTTP HTML protocol. You have to use POP3 or IMAP protocol for that. So for now, let's just concentrate only on one protocol, that is web HTTP HTML, because in most of the cases this protocol is going to be used for scripting purpose. Now when you have developed one script, the extension of that particular Vugen script is going to be .usr. Second part is the controller. So here controller is actually used for performance execution part. Now before we will go into the performance execution, we have to first of all design the scenario or design how we are going to execute the particular performance test. That means designing of a particular scenario depends on what kind of performance testing you are going to do, whether it is a load testing, whether it is a spike testing, phase testing, endurance testing, whatever it is. So for now, just remember that controller is used for performance execution part with multiple user load. User load means concurrent users. And file extension for controller scenario is .lrs, load runner scenario. Next one is the analysis. Analysis you can easily understand by the term itself. Analysis is used for detailed level analysis of the result that you have got after the performance test execution. Now in the LoadRunner analyzer you can get various graphs like application response time, hits per second, throughput, transaction per second, and also you can get server side statistics if you have already configured the application or web or database server into LoadRunner. So analysis is mainly used for analyzing the result after performance test execution and report preparation purpose using various graphs from the client and the server side statistics. Here also the file extension is .lrr, that means LoadRunner result, and when you will save that file into a new session, it will be a .lra, that is LoadRunner analysis. I think you guys will not be able to understand much right now what these terms are, but once we will go into the hands-on part, you guys will be definitely able to understand what I'm talking about. Now, apart from these three components, I just told you guys that there are two other components. Those are also important components. One is load generator, another one is load agent service. Okay, so what is load generator? As you can easily guess from the term is that load generator is nothing but a machine, a computer machine which is going to generate the user load for your performance testing. Now, if I go into a bit detail, let's consider one scenario where your application has 2000 user base. That means you will have to do performance testing with a 2000 user load. Now, let's say my machine where I'm going to run the performance test has let's say 8 GB RAM and 4 core processor. Now, if I'm going to run my performance testing from that machine with 2000 user load, my resource utilization, the CPU memory utilization of this particular machine will be huge. It might cross even 80%. So there will be no meaning of performance testing, obviously. So in that case, what you can do is that if you have other machines, if you have let's say 4 or 5 machines, and what you can do is that distribute those 2000 user load across 4 or 5 machines. So each one of having 400 user load, so 400 into 5 equals to 2000. Then what will happen? Each of the machines is going to have good amount of resource utilization. So that can be considered as a valid performance testing. I hope you guys are able to understand. If not, please do let me know via comments so that I can improve myself. Now, the second point is the across different geographic location. What does that mean? Let's consider one scenario that I have one application named ABC, which is being hosted. I mean, the servers are hosted in USA. Now, most of the users are from India for that particular application. Now, if you have to hit that particular application from India, obviously you have to go through various networks. So obviously there will be network latency from India to USA. So to simulate that particular situation in your performance testing area, what you can do is you can create a load generator from India itself and then use that as a load generator for mimicking this kind of scenario where your application is hosted in USA and the users are from UK or India or Middle East. Okay. Now, for any machine to act as a load generator, we must need to install the load agent service, which is amagentproc.exe. Next is LoadRunner agent service or load agent service. So load agent service actually acts as a bridge between the controller and the load generator so that they can talk to each other. Now, if you can think that a controller is just a software which you have installed in a particular machine, and that particular software or the controller is used for designing the scenario for your performance testing and start the execution. Okay, now I have already talked about load generators and all. The main point is that controller itself can act as a load generator. So if you have, let's say, 100 users, you are not going to buy a separate machine, right? You are going to use the local host or the controller itself to act as a load generator. But in the cases like you have huge number of users for your application, like before I've told, if you have 2000 user load and you have let's say 4 or 5 machines, then you can distribute the user load among them. So for now, let's just consider I have not given any users to the controller machine or the local host. So in that case, or in any case, what will happen? Controller is going to act like a boss. Load generators are going to act like slaves. What does that mean? Whenever I am going to start the performance test, controller is going to ask the load generator that, dude, I have been started. Please pump up the users from your side. What does pump up the users mean? That means load generators is going to load the application servers or web servers with the load they have. So controller is going to act like a master. Means he is going to initialize the users, is going to run them, pause them, stop them. Okay, and whenever control is going to ask the load generator, dude, I have just been paused. Please do something from your side. That means please stop or please pause all of the users. If the execution has been stopped or it's going to be completed, controller is going to ask the load generator, dude, I have been completed. Stop all of your virtual users right now. So that is the basic funda of this load agent service. It's nothing but a communication bridge from the controller to the load generator. That is all. Next, before going to the loader hands-on of scripting, execution, designing the scenarios and analysis part, let's make few things very clear, which are, there are some key terms or keywords for load runner that needs to be understood for the novice performance test. First one is, what is a transaction? So a transaction is nothing but the actions one user is going to perform for any application. Let's say you are going to log into the Facebook application. So login is a transaction. You have clicked on the home button of the Facebook application. So clicking on the home button is a transaction. You have in the email, in the case of Gmail, let's consider, you have clicked on the inbox, that is a transaction. You are reading one unread mail, that is one transaction, like those things. But in few cases, let's say when you are going to log in, you are going to give some input. What are the inputs? User ID and password. You are performing one action here. I mean, you are just writing the username and password, but those things are not transaction. I will let you know why. But before that, let's consider one more example is that, let's say you have 3 drop down. One is for country, another one is for state, and the last one is for district. So in the country section, or in the country drop down, if you have selected the country India, there will be lots of states. If you have selected West Bengal, then in the district sections there will be lots of districts. So you can select whatever you want. Now in this particular case, I'm doing these things. Will this be considered as a transaction? Now that can vary. Why? If, I mean, whatever action we are performing, if there is any communication from the client to server side, if client is sending any HTTP request to the server, that particular action is only going to be considered as a transaction, nothing else. So in my first example, if you are just inputting The user ID and password, that is not a transaction. When you are hitting the login button, that is a transaction because there are some communication from the client to server side. Some requests are going through the network from the client to the server, and the client is getting some response from the server side. Okay. Now in my second example, I have told you about a country, state and district. Now in that case, I have seen in many applications that they have written one JavaScript file itself where they have given all of the data like state, country and everything in the JS file itself. So in that case, you are actually not retrieving any data from server as JS files are going to be executed on the client side itself. So in that case, that is not a transaction. But it might so happen that these things or this data, this country, state, and district are not written in the JS file. So if there is any communication happening from the client to the server side, obviously you have to consider that as a transaction. Okay, so that was first. Second one is users or virtual users. That means like let's say if your application has 2000 production user load. Okay, so in that case, in actually if you are considering any realistic scenario in a practical world of testing, it is not possible to bring 1000 or 2000 real human being testers and do various kind of activity upon one application concurrently. That is not possible at all. Hence, the concept of virtual users has come, which is going to simulate the real-time users for any application via LoadRunner. Third point is the transaction response time. So here, response time is nothing but the amount of time that has been taken for a transaction to complete. So if you are actually calculating the response time, then it will be like the difference in time from the first byte you have sent of any request from the client side to the server side to the first byte the client has received of the corresponding response from the server. That is actually the round trip or the response time of any particular request. Okay. Fourth one is the parameterization. This is really a strong word for LoadRunner. So what is parameterization and when do we need to do the parameterization? So in any application, let's consider the Facebook application, you have to give the input for user ID and password and then click on the login button. Now, whatever input the user is providing, that needs to be parameterized. Why? But why? User ID and password, if I can pass as a hard-coded value into my request, that is also going to work. Obviously, it's going to work. But Facebook doesn't have one single user. Facebook has millions or billions of users. So in that case, if you are just passing one single user ID as a hard-coded value, that is not going to work. So you have to write all of the user IDs. If your application has 1000 or 2000 user load and each of the virtual users should have a unique user ID, then you have to write those 2000 user ID in one parameter file that is nothing but a .txt file, and then from that parameter file you can pass the parameter value to your script. Same is that if you are filling up any application form, you need to fill up a lot of details like name, address, mobile number, customer ID, Aadhaar card number, etc. And these things might be unique to every user. Like Aadhaar card number has to be unique for every user. Social security number has to be unique for every user. So to pass these static user input values in the LoadRunner script, you need to parameterize these values to use them for multiple users. Now, fifth one is the correlation. This is utterly most important, correlation. In every performance testing tool, correlation is the most important topic. So what is correlation? Correlation is used for capturing or handling any dynamic data in the script. Let's go for an example. When you first log into your application, it's going to generate one unique session ID for your corresponding to your login user ID credentials. And this particular session ID is going to be generated from the server side. Please remember that. Now, server is going to pass you or is going to send you that particular session ID in response. Okay. I mean, the client is going to receive the session ID in response from the server side. So from the second time, whenever you are going to perform any other action into the application after logging in, server is going to ask for that particular session ID to validate that you are the same user that is being logged in. Okay, so it's going to ask for the session ID to identify yourself as a client. But the main issue is that once you logged out, that session will be invalid, and once you will again log in, again one new session ID is going to be created. So these values are going to be changed for every iteration, for every user after every login. So we need to maintain these dynamic values in our script via some technique. And we, after maintaining or after capturing the dynamic values from the response that server has sent to the client, we have to pass on to the subsequent request so that the subsequent request will be validated properly by the servers. That is why you have to use the correlation. You simply cannot pass the session ID, the same session ID as a hard-coded value to the server every time, because your session ID is going to get expired from the next time you introduce it. So it has to be dynamically handled. That is why correlation is used. So guys, that is all for today's lesson. Okay, I'm not going to go into a LoadRunner hands-on for today. I will start the LoadRunner hands-on part in my next tutorial for sure. Okay, so yeah, so that is all for this video right now. If you guys have any doubt, or if you guys think that I may be wrong in any place during my tutorial, not for this one but also for the earlier one that I have released, so please mention those things in my comment so that I can improve myself. Also guys, I would like to request you, please subscribe to my channel, like this particular video and share this particular video. Thanks a lot guys. Enjoy yourself. Bye bye.